looking at multimodal text today. Now, to define a text as multimodal, it has to have two or more communication modes, such as print, image, and spoken text, like in films or computer presentations. Some other ones you might be familiar with are picture books, graphic novels, infographics, magazines, DVD covers, brochures, and of course this video is multimodal. So let's have a look at some of them with a little bit more depth to look at why they're multimodal. Here's one I got off of YouTube. You might be familiar with Pumped Up Kicks, the song, and this looks at it using Anglo-Saxon language. The song Pumped Up Kicks is about a school shooting and it's very recognisable. Combining the song with the Anglo-Saxon language makes the language more familiar and exceeds in engaging a modern audience with the language.
Locun Deum berum nele delante his rat he hat smoke pipon fulle. Om de utmudde beton will de knick he fan Irish word bohen. On Jesus father just de diran anarache tenga ich ne ut now we what. He is commende forte, ja. All the other children with you so come shalom with their innen from Multimodal. All the other children with you so come shalom with their innen quick kraton mit boha. All the other children with you so come shalom with their innen from Multimodal. All the other children with you so come shalom with their innen quick kraton mit boha.
So yeah, if you were looking at that in terms of being a multimodal text, you might look at the visual aspects, such as the use of the font, the placement of the two forms of language next to each other as a way of creating a comparison between the two, or the use of the illustration. You might have been looking at the written form in terms of the words themselves, that they are familiar to you, or the words that they were using, or the fact that they choose to use the Anglo-Saxon language as their delivery method. You would look at the audio, and you might look at the choice of instruments, the tune, and again the choice of the language. So if you were analysing that text and how they try and make the Anglo-Saxon language interesting and engaging for a contemporary audience, you would really need to look at all of those different modes of delivery together to show how they've managed that. So this is a multimodal text. Here's another one that we're going to look at. It is a lyric video by Miss Aibeline. Again, I got it off of YouTube, and it's a pretty common type approach where they take a song and they create an animation to go with it, and they tell you what the lyrics are. But this one really is a multimodal text because it all works together to deliver the text which explores the pain of having a friend that is suffering from mental health issues. And let's have a look at what it does.
You said they made fun of your body, humiliation in your eyes when you told me, well, I'm gonna find them, don't you worry, I'll make sure they're really fucking sorry. You say you're embarrassed of your body. You told me you think you're really ugly. Oh my love, I know you don't see what I see. Anything that is beautiful, people want to break.
So again, the meaning is made by the combination of the written, such as the use of alliteration for emphasis, the visual aspects, the arrangements of the words, the fonts, the images, whether they are, there is an emphasis on emotion through close-up composition, and of course the audio, the voice of the singer and the music. So all of it comes together to create that meaning, making it a multimodal text. Here is another one, a different type this time. We're looking at a brochure. This is a brochure about inclusive education of Western Australia. This is an organisation that provides information and support to LGBTQI plus kids and their families. Now, it's got two outcomes that it is after. It is trying to reassure these families that, they can offer support to their children and their children are going to be happy, and to give them the information about the different terms and the different problems and the different outcomes for LGBTQI kids. There's a lot of informative sort of information. It's very informative language, some of it quite scientific, using data and statistics. But there's also going to be this running narrative, most of it a visual narrative, about happy children, because they want to reassure them. They don't want them to be frightened. So let's see how they've achieved that over 3 pages of their brochure. So here you've got the visual I talked about before, the banner in the middle, what it's about, but notice that the majority of the page is that reassuring picture of happy children. And the written part, don't forget that the choice of the word inclusive is important. It's a positive connotation. Also, they use a rhetorical question: what is inclusive education WA? They've got graphs. They use colour to make the different parts of the information stand out. They've got images to help you engage with what you're seeing. But they've also got the written information, just telling you what they are doing, what is happening in schools with inclusive education. Again, they've got the written part on this page with the rhetorical questions, and the visuals is the colour panels showing you it's a different kind of information that you're being given there. So it's more than visual and it's more than written information. It's both. So it can deliver both the support of the positive narrative and with the reassurance along with its information that it needs to deliver to parents and caregivers about things that can be done in terms of inclusive education for their child. Now, we're going to have a look at another text in a minute. We're going to look at a graphic novel, but this one is a web comic. So you could look at it how it's delivered digitally as another way of it being delivered, but we're going to look at it in terms of it being a print text. But again, in reality, it also has a digital aspect to it as well, because it is a web comic. And that is Black Cat by Jenny, I think it's Jenny Ginya. Yep, Jenny Ginya. You can find that on Black Panda webcomics. It's very sad. So there's going to be visual aspects to it, such as the way that they set out the panels, what they choose to put emphasis on by giving it more space in the page, like whether they choose to sort of compose it in like a medium shot where you can see the relationships and power dynamics, what kind of colors they choose. Like you'll notice only the flowers have colors because these people have passed. This is death and a dead cat. But there's also going to be written aspects to it as well. So there would be the choice of the word hate about the cat, that this world seems to hate black cats, an emotive word. So it's got both written and visual aspects. Probably important to mention at this point though, always use the right language, the meta language of the type of text that you are looking at. If I was talking about the people speaking, I would talk about their speech bubbles. I might talk about the panel. I might talk about the fact that some of the speech or the action bleeds out of the panel. I might talk about the gutters, which is what the spaces that surround them and what events happen between them. So I would be looking at expanding my knowledge of the meta language of graphic novels if that was a text that I was trying to analyze, so that when I'm speaking about that multimodal text, I understand how to describe the visual, the written, or in some cases the audio delivery of information the most effectively. And I have more information on graphic novel meta language on my Moodle page, so you should go have a look at that. Also strongly recommend you go read Black Cat. It's very, very sad. It's also a hybrid text. It is, of course, a narrative, but it's also got informative writing in it. Towards the end, it gives you some information about the experience of black cats. It's quite a switch in the narrative tone where it's moving into a different form of writing. So it is multimodal. It has both visual aspects and it has both as written aspects. And a true discussion of it would need you to look at both. So you've got to remember, if you're analysing a text as multimodal, you must look at more than one mode of communication. Otherwise, you're not really examining why it's multimodal. And if you're producing a text that is multimodal, you also need to be looking at meaningfully using more than one mode. So you can't just do a speech in front of a picture and not relate to it, or you know, do some sort of animation and just have like music under it without thinking about how it works. Everything is meaningfully used, and so that you can justify it and say, yeah, this is actually part of me delivering a message, delivering a narrative. So that's what makes it multimodal. If you have any more questions, please feel free to see me.